Do a custom patina on these. This is a Carmina pear. On the Rain Last, this is an Austerity brogue. And that is where it's got the shape of the wingtip, but there's actually no broguing, which is the little punched holes. I like this pear. I like this burgundy color, but you can see in the creasing where it's kind of lighter. And I'm thinking if I strip it, it's going to look a little bit better, remove some of that lighter creasing. And really, I've always wanted to have kind of a plum museum color. So I'm going to try to duplicate the plum museum. So I'm going to strip these and see what they look like after. We'll begin with regular acetone, a little cotton ball. Now any polish on the toe cap is what's going to come off first. So it is probably not even touching the finish of the leather. Here on the vamp, we'll actually be removing the finish. But on this toe, you see this whitish appearance there? That is just where it's removing wax, not even touching the dye or the finish of the shoe yet. So really you got to get through the wax layer first. Even the stripping process itself leaves kind of a mottled appearance and coloration to it. So you can strip a little heavier in a few spots, lighter in a few spots, even some color variation. This one's been stripped. It's a little bit lighter overall than this one. I'll get this one to match, but it doesn't have to be a perfectly clean and even strip. I like to have a little bit of color variation on purpose. I just have to make sure I got through all the wax so that the dye will penetrate the leather. Alright, I've created a custom dye color. It was kind of a mix of some fibing red and sapphire navy, and diluted it some with alcohol, so it just kind of played around until I got a color that I think I would like. And so I'm just going to be applying this in kind of a splotchy method. No real pattern or plan, and that's just how you make the that museum style. And after I do a few rounds with this, I'll maybe darken the dye slightly and go a few more rounds. So it's just going to be a matter of kind of putting it on randomly to create that museum style. Continued to custom mix some color, mixed in a little bit of Fibing's cordovan, and this is just adding a little bit more darker accenting to some areas. Now I tell you, with the museum style patina, it's a little tricky because I've got so many layers of dye, and because there is this dry surface dye, at some point it makes sense to actually kind of stop what you're doing let it all dry, and actually use the conditioning lotion because that's going to wipe off some of this excess surface dye to really see what the color is. You know, I might actually find that, you know, I could have been done a few minutes ago, and I might find that, no, it's not nearly as dark or accented as what I thought it was or as what I want it to be. So, you know, I kind of haven't done a few of these to get a feel for it, but on a museum patina in particular, you may find that you stop, recondition, let that dry, and go back a second time and add dye. Where normal patina, you typically can finish all the dye and do one round of the reconditioning. But so on this, I'm not going to go too much further. I'm going to do a little bit more of this dark accenting in a few areas. But after that, I'm going to really pause, let it all dry, and we'll see what we've got. But again, no big deal if we want to add more dark later. It's a lot easier to add more dark. It is harder to lighten. So I don't really want to overdo it too dark, and I don't think I have. But yeah, going too dark is worse than not dark enough. You can always darken later. It's hard to stop, but really I should follow my own advice at this point and really take a pause and wait and see what this looks like before I go too far in any area. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to let it sit overnight. It's hard to be patient, but I'm going to let this sit overnight. We'll recondition it in the morning, and then we get a true sense for what the color is. If there's a couple areas that are too light, we can hit them up with that dye, but hopefully that'll be looking pretty good. I'm going to wipe down the shoes with Big 4 conditioning lotion. Yeah, I've said this in other videos, but the reason I like the Big 4 better than some others, it tends to be a little bit more gentle, and so it doesn't remove as much surface dye as some others. And so that's a good thing a lot of times when you're doing patina work. You don't want it to strip a bunch of the dye back off, so the goal is to only remove any dye that's just kind of sitting on the surface that didn't penetrate the leather. I don't need something that really absorbs into the leather too much and removes dye from there. So this has been a good, mild conditioning lotion. Great for patina work. You see already the richness of the color, much bolder compared to here. This almost looks like a brick red, where this has got the more wine purple tones to it. I do recommend wearing gloves for this part too. You can see a lot of dye has come off of here, especially with the museum style patina. It's kind of a messy one. It's got so many layers upon layers of color. So far I'm really happy with the coloration on these. If you're able to see that kind of subtle museum effect on them. And so I really don't want to change the color or darken it up much at all, so I'm going to use the Saphir Mirror Gloss, just this neutral. So I've already used the Big 4 conditioning cream on them. I usually will apply this first round of wax just with my hand, and then after that I'll switch to using a cloth. And I'm mostly just going to be applying to the toes and heels here. Now you can see on this one where it's got a crease going across the toe. I've got to be careful there. I'm not going to be able to mirror shine up all the way to here. I'll have to stop right about there. Same here where that crease is. So when doing a brand new pair for the first time, you got to kind of be mindful that it may end up creasing somewhere within the area that you shined and it'll crack. So you don't want to go too far with it. So I've got the base coat of wax done. Now I'm going to add a little bit more shine. So I'm still using the Saphir Mirror Gloss. The cloth here is just a cut up t-shirt. So I apply a small amount of wax to the cloth and a single little drop of water and just kind of buff. You will find that a little bit of dye is going to come off when you do this too, but hopefully after you've done the conditioning lotion and let things sit, especially overnight, that not too much color is going to continue to come off. If you find too much color coming off, you may need to let it sit a little while longer. Once it's shined up real good, the wax is going to kind of protect it going forward too, so you should have less and less color coming off over time, and eventually really none should come off. And at this point, when we've got a damp cloth, you can go over, and I will probably once just go over the entire shoe. So this is just putting a really light coat of wax over it. I'm not going to mirror shine it because that will crack, but just going over the whole thing once like this, putting just a little bit of shine on there, that's not going to create a problem. It's not going to crack. You can do the same thing with cream polish. really I don't have a neutral cream polish. So I've got Hermes Red, something like that, but I just like the color of these where it's at, and I really didn't want to alter the color at all, so I decided not to use cream polish on them this time. But you certainly could.